My name is Althea Monroe. I am 76 years old. And the day my own grandchildren laughed at my pain, something inside me went very quiet. Not angry. Not loud. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that means something has ended and something else has begun. I was lying on the living room floor when it happened. My hip burned like fire. My legs wouldn't listen to me. And above me, I heard giggling. Not worry. Not fear. Laughter. Grandma fell again, one of them said, holding up a phone. Look at her face, another laughed. She looks funny. Funny. I tried to speak. My mouth opened, but the words came out slow. Baby, help me up. They didn't hear me. Or maybe they did, and chose not to. Before I go any further, let me say this. If you've ever been laughed at when you were hurting, if you've ever been ignored by the ones you love most, if you've ever felt small in your own house, backhand index pointing right, subscribe for stories like mine. Thumbs up like this video so others can hear it. Bell turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Speech balloon and tell me in the comments where you're watching from so I know who's standing with me. Because what happened after that laughter? They're not laughing now. The pain in my hip wasn't new. It had been whispering to me for months. But that fall made it scream. I reached for the coffee table, fingers shaking. Please, I said again, just help Grandma up. One of them rolled their eyes. Mom said you're always dramatic, he said. Another voice added, she'll be fine. They went back to their game. I lay there longer than I want to admit. The floor was cold. My pride was colder. I stared at the ceiling fan, turning slowly, and thought about the nights I stayed up rocking their parents to sleep. The meals I skipped so everyone else could eat. The hands that once held me tight when they were small. Now those same hands held phones. Pointed at me. Eventually, my daughter came home. She sighed when she saw me. Mom, what happened now? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at my grandchildren. They avoided my eyes. That night, I sat alone in my room. The house was loud with laughter again. Their laughter. I pressed an ice pack to my hip and stared at the wall. That's when I noticed something. My purse was open. Not how I left it. I stood slowly and walked over. My hands shook as I checked inside. My wallet was lighter. My phone moved. Something else was missing too. Something important. I didn't know what yet. But I felt it. I sat down on the edge of the bed and whispered to myself. They think this is funny. They think I don't see. They think I'm done. I was. Not even close. Because while they were laughing, I was paying attention. And the next thing I discovered would change everything. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't say anything that night. I learned a long time ago that silence can be louder than shouting, if you listen close enough. I closed my purse, set it back where I found it, and lay down on my bed with my hips still burning. The house was full of noise, shoes running, a television laughing for them, my grandchildren arguing over snacks like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't been on the floor. Like I wasn't still hurting. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the first day each of them was born. How I held them before they could even open their eyes. How they wrapped their tiny fingers around mine and refused to let go. I whispered to the dark room, when did I become a joke? The next morning, I woke up early. Too early. Pain will do that to you. I tried to stand, but my hip sent a sharp warning up my side. I held onto the dresser until my legs stopped shaking. When I opened my door, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked slowly to the living room. The couch pillows were out of place. A cup was tipped over on the table. My old photo album, the one I kept under the shelf, was gone. My heart dropped. That album held everything. Birthdays, funerals, letters, names, proof of a life lived. I stood there, breathing hard. Who touched my things? I asked the empty room. No answer. I went to the kitchen. My daughter stood at the counter, scrolling on her phone. Did you move my album? I asked. She didn't look up. The kids were bored, she said. They were just looking. Looking. That album is private, I said. She sighed loudly, finally turning to me. Mom, you can't keep acting like everything is so serious. Serious? I pressed my lips together. Where is it now? I asked. She shrugged. I don't know, ask them. I went back to my room and sat on the bed. That's when I noticed something else. My envelope was missing. The brown one. The one I kept hidden under my clothes. The one with names written inside. My hands went cold. That envelope wasn't money. It was worse. It was information. Passwords. Account notes. Old insurance papers. Things I kept just in case something ever happened to me. Things no one else was supposed to touch. I called out softly, "Baby." No answer. I raised my voice a little. Can you come here, please? Footsteps came down the hall. My oldest grandchild leaned against the doorframe. What? He said. Did you take something from my room? I asked. He smirked. No. His eyes didn't meet mine. I nodded slowly. All right, I said. He laughed. You always think someone's stealing from you, he said. That's why Mom says you're losing it. Losing it. The words landed hard. I watched him walk away, whistling. That afternoon, my hip hurt so badly I couldn't stand without help. I asked for water. No one came. I asked again. A voice from the living room shouted, "In a minute." That minute stretched into an hour. I lay there, staring at the wall, listening to them laugh again. At something on a screen. At something that wasn't me. But it felt like it was. That's when I heard it. My own voice. Coming from another room. Laughter followed. I pushed myself up, pain screaming through my side, and followed the sound. They were watching a video. On one of their phones. A video of me. On the floor. Reaching out. Asking for help. Play it again, one of them said. No, watch her face here, another laughed. My knees buckled. I grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. The room went quiet when they noticed me. Their laughter stopped. Not from shame. From surprise. Delete that, I said. My voice shook, but it was firm. One of them shrugged. It's funny, he said. Relax. Delete it, I repeated. My daughter stepped in. Mom, you're overreacting, she said. They're just kids. Kids. Who knew how to humiliate. Who knew how to hide. I turned and walked back to my room without another word. Inside, I closed the door gently. I sat on the bed and let the tears come, just for a moment. Then I wiped my face. Because something else had arrived. Not sadness. Awareness. I whispered to myself, they don't see me as human anymore. They see me as content. That evening, while everyone slept, I stayed awake. I waited until the house was quiet. Then I stood slowly and opened my drawer. I pulled out my old notebook, the one I hadn't used in years. I opened it to the first blank page. And I wrote, what they think I don't notice. Then I started listing everything. The laughter. The missing envelope. The video. The words. I wrote carefully. Neatly. Like someone preparing for something important. As I wrote, I realized something chilling. They weren't just laughing. They were practicing. Practicing how to erase me. I closed the notebook and placed it beside my bed. I lay back down and stared into the dark. And for the first time since that fall, I smiled. Not because I was happy, because I understood. They think I'm weak, I whispered. They think I won't remember. They think this ends with laughter. It didn't, because while they were laughing, I was planning, and the next thing I would discover would make sure they never laughed at my pain again. I did not sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the video again. Me on the floor, my hand reaching out, their laughter behind the camera. I learned something important in the dark. Pain hurts, but disrespect cuts deeper. When morning came, I didn't rush. I lay still and listened. Doors opening, cereal bowls clinking, shoes dragging across the floor. Life going on without me. And for the first time, I let it. I used to speak up right away. Don't do that. Please be careful. That's not kind. I thought correcting them meant loving them. Now I understood something new. Explaining only helps people who want to understand. I waited until the house emptied. My daughter left for work. The younger ones left for school. Only my oldest grandchild stayed home, pretending to be sick. Pretending. I stood slowly and walked into the living room. The phone charger was plugged into the wall. Not mine. I followed the cord with my eyes. It led behind the couch. That's where I found it. My phone. Not broken. Not lost. Hidden. My chest tightened. They hadn't just filmed me. They had taken my phone. Moved it. Controlled what I could see. I sat down carefully and held it in my hands. There were new apps installed. Apps I didn't recognize. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I did something better. I opened my notebook. And I wrote. They think I don't know how PHONES work. I smiled a little. Because they were wrong. I grew up without phones, which meant I learned patience. I learned how to watch quietly. I learned how to wait until people showed me who they really were. I spent the rest of the morning doing something new. Nothing. I didn't cook. I didn't clean. I didn't remind. I just watched. Around noon, my oldest grandchild came out of his room. He looked surprised to see me sitting there. You didn't make lunch, he asked. No, I said softly. He frowned. Well, what are we eating? I looked at him. You tell me. He rolled his eyes and went back to his room. I heard drawers opening. Cabinets slamming. He wasn't angry. He was inconvenienced. And that told me everything. That afternoon, I tested something. I asked a simple question. Can you help me with my pills? He sighed loudly. Again. Again. I nodded. My hands shake sometimes. He didn't come closer. Just take them later, he said. Later never came. I wrote again in my notebook. They don't see me as someone to care for. They see me as something in the way. Later, when my daughter came home, I tried once more. Not to argue. To listen. I fell again yesterday, I said gently. She didn't look at me. Mom, we talked about this, she replied. You have to be more careful. Careful. As if gravity asked permission. I waited. She kept talking. Honestly, I have so much stress already. Stress? I nodded. I understand, I said. She stopped and stared at me. You do. Yes, I said, I do. She looked confused. She expected resistance. Not agreement. That night, I heard them laughing again. But this time, I didn't feel small. I felt alert. Because laughter like that hides something. I checked my bank app quietly. Nothing was missing. But something felt off. A new notification popped up. Account access updated. My stomach dropped. I went to my room and closed the door. I pulled out the envelope I thought was gone. It was still missing. That meant someone else had it. Someone with time. Someone with access. I sat on the bed and pressed my palms together. "All right," I whispered. "Now I see." They weren't just careless. They were preparing. I remembered something my own mother used to say. When people stop respecting you, they start planning around you. I finally understood what she meant. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. An old woman stared back. Gray hair. Soft skin. Tired eyes. But behind those eyes was something sharp. Memory. That night, I did something brave. I backed up everything. Photos. Messages. Notes. I emailed copies to an address only I knew. Then I turned off my phone. I wrote one last line in my notebook before sleeping. They think I'm asleep. I'm not. And as I lay there in the dark, listening to the house breathe around me, I knew this was no longer about hurt feelings. It was about survival. Because the next thing I would uncover would prove they weren't just laughing. They were already moving. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. That night, the house sounded different. Not louder. Careless. Doors closed without care. Footsteps rushed. Voices dropped low when I walked by. People don't whisper unless they think someone is listening. I was. I kept my door cracked just enough to hear. I heard my daughter on the phone. "Yes," she said. "I know, just a little longer." A pause. "No, she doesn't understand anything. She barely uses her phone." I closed my eyes. Barely. I waited until the house fell asleep. Then I got up. Slow. Quiet. Careful. Pain followed me, but I welcomed it. Pain keeps you alert. I went to the hallway closet. The one they thought I never touched. I reached behind the coats and felt the small metal box taped to the wall. Still there. Still locked. Still mine. Inside were copies. Old deeds. Insurance papers. Letters from long ago. Proof I existed before them. Proof I mattered. I returned to my room and sat on the bed. I didn't open the box. I didn't need to. Just knowing it was safe gave me strength. The next day, I pretended. Pretended to be slower. Pretended to forget things. Pretended not to hear whispers stop when I entered a room. I let them believe what they wanted. People reveal everything when they feel smarter than you. At breakfast, my youngest grandchild laughed again. Not at me. At something on his phone. "Look," he said to his brother, "this one's better." I leaned closer. "What is it?" I asked gently. He jumped. "Oh, nothing. Nothing is never nothing." Later, I overheard my daughter speaking sharply. "No, not yet," she said. "I'm waiting for the right moment." The right moment for what? That afternoon, my daughter sat beside me on the couch. Too close. Too sweet. "Mom," she said softly, "have you thought about downsizing?" Downsizing. I smiled politely. Where would I go? She hesitated. "Well, assisted living, or maybe with your sister." My sister had been dead for years. She knew that. "I like it here," I said. She sighed. "You don't want to be a burden." There it was again. Burden. The word they used when they wanted permission to erase you. I nodded slowly. "You're right," I said. Her shoulders relaxed. She thought she'd won something. That night, I checked my email. A message sat there, unopened. Subject, Power of Attorney update. My heart thumped hard. They hadn't asked. They hadn't warned. They had moved without me. I didn't open the message. Not yet. Instead, I wrote in my notebook. They think quiet means weak. Quiet means ready. I slept deeply that night, because fear had finally turned into clarity. The next morning, I watched them closely. My oldest grandchild went through my mail before handing it to me. My daughter hovered whenever I picked up my phone. They were nervous now. Movement creates noise. Noise attracts attention. That afternoon, I did something unexpected. I asked my daughter for help. I need to organize my old papers, I said. Her eyes lit up. Of course, she replied quickly. Too quickly. We sat at the table together. She flipped through papers fast. Too fast. Skipping pages. Looking for something specific. I watched her hands. They paused when she saw a certain name. Mine. Written in bold. Where did you get this? She asked. I've had it a long time, I said. She smiled tightly. You really should let me handle these things. Handle. Like an object. I nodded again. Maybe, I said. She relaxed. She thought I was giving in. She didn't see my other hand, sliding a paper quietly into my pocket. That night, I read the email. Everything inside it was wrong. Dates. Signatures. Details I never agreed to. They were planning to decide for me. Without me. I sat on the edge of my bed and felt something solid settle inside my chest. Resolve. I remembered the laughter. The video. The fall. I remembered lying on the floor, reaching out, and being filmed instead of helped. That moment was no longer pain. It was proof. I opened my notebook and wrote the last line for the night. They think I'm the problem. They forgot I'm the witness. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and smiled into the dark. Because the next chapter of this story wouldn't be about watching. It would be about choosing. And once I chose, they wouldn't be laughing anymore. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The morning I decided to stop asking for permission, the house felt smaller. Not tighter. Smaller. Like it had been built around me, without my consent. I stood in the kitchen holding my mug, watching steam rise, and realized something simple but heavy. Everything in this house moved when I moved. And yet, no one moved for me anymore. I used to explain myself. Why I needed help. Why I asked questions. Why I kept papers. Why I liked things a certain way. I thought explaining meant peace. But peace doesn't come from explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. That morning, my daughter didn't say good morning. She walked past me, grabbed her bag, and said, "Don't forget your pills." Not did you take them. Not are you okay. Just don't forget. I nodded. Not because I forgot. Because I was done correcting her tone. After everyone left, I sat at the table with my notebook. I didn't write complaints. I wrote plans. Small ones. Careful ones. Plans that didn't need approval. First, I called an old friend. Her name was Evelyn Price. We hadn't spoken in years, but she picked up on the second ring. "Althea," she said, surprised. "Yes," I replied, "it's me." "Oh my goodness," she laughed. "I thought something happened to you." I paused. "Something did," I said, "but I'm still here." We talked for a long time. About weather. About aches. About nothing important. Then I said, "Do you still help seniors organize their things?" She went quiet. "Yes," she said carefully. "Why?" "I need help," I said. "Not with my body, with my life." She didn't ask questions. She didn't doubt me. She said, "I'll come by tomorrow." That was the first yes I'd heard in a long time. That afternoon, I did something else. I moved my room. Not completely. Just enough. I shifted the chair closer to the window. I placed my notebook somewhere only I could reach easily. I taped a small piece of paper behind the mirror. It had one sentence on it. You are still you. I needed to see that every morning. When my grandchildren came home, they barely noticed me. Which was fine. Invisibility can be protection. They laughed at their screens, passed by me like furniture. I watched. Later, my oldest grandchild sat too close to my door. Listening. I pretended not to notice. Then I spoke softly to myself. Tomorrow will be busy, I said aloud. He leaned in. What? He asked. Oh, I said sweetly, just thinking. He frowned. Something had changed. He could feel it. At dinner, my daughter talked about bills. About stress. About how much everything costs now. She sighed loudly. I don't know how much longer we can manage everything, she said, glancing at me. Manage? I chewed slowly. What do you mean? I asked. She hesitated. Well, you know. No. I didn't. And I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I don't, I said. The table went quiet. She cleared her throat. Mom, you need a lot of care. I smiled gently. Do I? She opened her mouth, then closed it, because saying it out loud would expose the lie. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks, because I had stopped shrinking. The next morning, Evelyn arrived. She wore a simple dress and carried a worn leather folder. My daughter looked surprised. Who's this? She asked. My friend, I said. She's here to help me organize. My daughter's jaw tightened. Oh, we were already doing that. Evelyn smiled politely. Good, she said. Then this will be easy. We sat at the table. Papers spread out. Evelyn didn't rush. She didn't touch anything without asking. She spoke to me, not about me. How do you want this handled? She asked. I almost cried. As we worked, I noticed my daughter packing. Hovering. Interrupting. That's not necessary, she said more than once. Evelyn nodded calmly. Necessary for who? She asked. Silence. My daughter excused herself to take a call. I leaned toward Evelyn. They think I don't understand what's happening, I whispered. Evelyn met my eyes. Do you? She asked. Yes, I said. Enough. She smiled. Then you're not late, she said. You're right on time. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. My youngest grandchild brought me a glass of water. He didn't say anything, just placed it gently on the table. Our eyes met for a moment. Confusion. Guilt. Something else. Maybe understanding. After Evelyn left, my daughter confronted me. You went behind my back, she said. I looked at her calmly. No, I replied. I went in front of myself. She didn't understand. And for once, I didn't explain. That night, I checked my email again. Another message had arrived. Action required. I didn't open it. Not yet. Because now I wasn't alone. And they didn't know that. I returned to my room and wrote in my notebook. They think I need their permission. I never did. As I turned off the light, I heard a whisper outside my door. They're changing, one grandchild said. Grandma's acting weird, another replied. I smiled in the dark. Because they were right. I was changing. And the next step I would take would make them realize I was never as powerless as they believed. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. That night, I felt it. The shift. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sudden. It was the way people moved around me. Careful now. Watching. unsure. When people lose control, they start pretending they never wanted it. My daughter knocked on my door. She didn't wait for an answer. She stepped inside and folded her arms. "You embarrass me today," she said. I looked up from my notebook. "Did I?" I asked. She frowned. "You brought someone into this house without telling me." I nodded. "Yes," I said, "I did." She laughed, sharp and short. "You can't just do things like that." I closed my notebook slowly. "I can," I said. "I just did." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. She sighed, changing her tone. "Mom, I'm just trying to help you." "Help?" That word again. "I know," I said gently. She relaxed. "Too soon." "But help doesn't mean taking," I added. Her eyes narrowed. "Taking what?" "Control," I said. The room went quiet. She stood there a long time. Then she said something that chilled me. "You wouldn't manage on your own." I looked at her calmly. "I already am." She left without another word. Her footsteps were heavier than before. Later that night, I heard drawers opening. Not in my room. In the office. The one they thought I didn't know about. The one where important things were kept. I stayed still. Listened. Counted footsteps. The next morning, I found the trash bin fuller than usual. Papers torn in half. Envelopes ripped. I picked one piece up quietly. It had my name on it. Written in my handwriting. Copied. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't raise my voice. I did something else. I called Evelyn again. "They're panicking," I said. "Good," she replied. "That means you're ahead." That afternoon, she came back. This time, she brought a small folder. "Just information," she said. "Nothing official. Information is power." We sat together in my room. Door closed. She explained things slowly. Options. Protections. Ways to make sure my voice stayed mine. Not one word about courts. Not one word about punishment. Just choice. As we talked, I heard footsteps pause outside my door. Listening. Again. I raised my voice just a little. "I don't want anyone making decisions for me," I said clearly. Silence outside. Then retreating footsteps. That evening, my grandchildren were quieter. Phones down. Eyes watching me when they thought I wasn't looking. The laughter was gone. Replaced by something else. Worry. At dinner, my daughter tried again. Soft voice. Careful words. "Mom," she said, "you've been distant." I smiled. "No," I replied, "I've been present." She swallowed. After dinner, I went to my room and locked the door. I hadn't locked it in years. The click sounded loud. Final. I opened my email. The message waited. Action required. I took a breath. Then I clicked. My heart beat hard as I read. They had already started something. Without me. In my name. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I laughed softly. Not from joy. From clarity. I picked up my notebook and wrote one sentence, slowly and carefully. THEY moved first. Now I move better. I lay down that night knowing something important. This was no longer about respect. It was about stopping something before it went too far. And the next choice I made would change the balance in this house forever. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't rush after reading that email. That surprised me. Old Althea would have panicked. Cried. Asked questions she wasn't ready to hear answers to. But this Althea breathed. Slow in. Slow out. Because once you know the truth, Panic doesn't help. Preparation does. The email was polite. Too polite. It thanked me for initiating changes and listed steps that had already begun. Changes I did not ask for. Changes made in my name. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then I closed my eyes. They really thought I wouldn't notice, I whispered. That morning, I watched everyone closely. My daughter avoided my eyes. My oldest grandchild stayed near his phone. The younger ones whispered and stopped when I entered a room. People act strange when secrets start breathing. I made breakfast slowly. I didn't ask for help. I didn't comment on the tension. I let it sit. Like a smell no one wanted to name. Later, I asked my daughter something simple. Can you help me find the old folder from the office? I said. Her spoon froze halfway to her mouth. What folder? She asked. I smiled. The blue one, I said, with my name on it. She swallowed hard. I don't know where that is, she replied quickly. Too quickly. I see, I said. I went back to my room without another word. Inside, I opened my notebook. And I wrote, when people lie fast, been practicing. That afternoon, Evelyn called. I had a feeling, she said before I spoke. I told her about the email. She went quiet. That's serious, she said gently, but it's not finished. Good, I replied. Neither am I. She asked me one question. Do you know where they're keeping your papers? I thought about the office. The locked drawer. The room I was told not to enter because I might hurt myself. I think I do, I said. That evening, the house emptied again. My daughter left for an errand. The younger ones went to a friend's house. Only my oldest grandchild stayed behind. Perfect. I waited until he went to his room. Then I moved. Slow. Quiet. Careful. Pain followed me, but I ignored it. This mattered more. The office door was unlocked. That was mistake number one. I stepped inside and closed it behind me. The room smelled like dust and printer ink. A place where decisions were made. Without me. I opened the desk drawer. Empty. Second drawer. Pens. Receipts. Nothing important. Third drawer. Locked. My heart beat louder. I remembered something. Years ago, my husband had taped a spare key behind a picture frame. For emergencies, he said. I checked. Still there. The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside was a stack of papers. Neat. Organized. Too organized. I pulled them out slowly. And there it was. My name. Over and over again. Documents filled with words like management, oversight, authority. Words that sounded helpful. Words that weren't. I sat down hard in the chair. They were planning to speak for me, I whispered. Footsteps sounded outside. I froze. A shadow passed the door. Then another. My breath caught. Had they heard? The footsteps moved away. I exhaled slowly. I didn't have time. I took photos with my phone. Every page. Every signature. Every date. Proof in my pocket. As I slid the papers back into place, something fell from the folder. A small note. Handwritten. In my daughter's handwriting. Once this is done, things will be easier. Easier. For who? I returned to my room and locked the door. My hands shook now. Not from fear. From the weight of knowing. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I said I wasn't hungry. No one questioned it. They were too busy watching me. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I thought about the fall. The laughter. The video. The whispers. This wasn't new behavior. It was just uncovered. I opened my notebook and wrote carefully. They just laugh at him, why pain? They used it. My phone buzzed. A message from my daughter. We need to talk tomorrow. I smiled sadly. Yes, I whispered. We do. Because tomorrow, I wouldn't be guessing anymore. I wouldn't be watching from the side. Tomorrow, I would decide how this story moved forward. And the next thing I would do would make it impossible for them to pretend this was for my own good. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was afraid. Because my mind was busy putting pieces together. Once you see the full picture, sleep becomes optional. Morning came gray and slow. I dressed carefully. Not fancy. Not weak. Just myself. A soft blouse. Comfortable shoes. Clothes for standing your ground. My daughter was already awake. She watched me from the kitchen doorway. You didn't eat last night, she said. I wasn't hungry, I replied. She hesitated. Are you feeling okay? I met her eyes. Yes, I said, I am. She didn't like that answer. The house felt tense. Like it knew something was about to be said. I poured tea and sat at the table. I didn't rush. I wanted her to sit first. She did. We need to talk, she said. I nodded. Yes, I replied calmly. We do. She took a breath. I've been doing a lot for you, she said. I know, I answered. And it's getting hard, she continued. You need more help than before. I listened. I really did. Then I asked, is that why you made decisions without me? Her eyes flickered. What decisions? I reached into my pocket. I placed my phone on the table. And I slid it toward her. The screen showed the photos. Papers. My name. Her handwriting. She went still. You went through my things, she said sharply. No, I replied. You went through my life. The words landed between us. Heavy. She stared at the phone. Then she laughed. A nervous sound. You don't understand what those mean, she said. I understand enough, I replied. She leaned forward. We were trying to make things easier. For who? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. The room felt smaller. My grandchildren stood in the hallway. Listening. Watching. I didn't look at them. This wasn't for them. Not yet. You filmed me when I fell, I said softly. Her head snapped up. That wasn't. You laughed, I continued, or you let them laugh. She opened her mouth. Closed it. I stood slowly. My hip protested. I ignored it. I carried all of you once, I said. I carried your fear, your hunger, your secrets. My voice didn't shake. I will not be carried out quietly. My youngest grandchild whispered, Mom. She turned sharply. Go to your room, she snapped. They scattered. Fear replaces laughter fast. She stood too. You're overreacting, she said. You're tired, you're confused. Confused. I smiled gently. That's the word you use when you don't want to listen. I reached into my bag. I pulled out my notebook. I placed it on the table. I opened it to the page with dates and notes. Falls. Missing papers. Emails. Videos. Her face drained of color. You kept records, she whispered. Yes, I said, because I'm not done thinking. She sank back into her chair. This will tear the family apart, she said. No, I replied. What you did already did that. Silence filled the room. I leaned closer. Here, what's going to happen, I said gently. Her eyes lifted. Hope flickered. I will choose who helps me, I continued. I will decide what happens to my name. And I will not be filmed, spoken over, or laughed at again. She swallowed. And if I don't agree, she asked. I met her eyes calmly. Then you will live with knowing you tried to erase your mother and failed. She sat back, defeated, not punished, seen. I picked up my notebook, my phone, my dignity, and I walked to my room. Behind me, the house was silent. That night, I heard no laughter, only doors closing softly. Carefully, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. My body ached. My heart felt heavy, but my spirit, steady. I whispered to myself. They laughed at my pain. They thought it made me small. I smiled in the dark. They forgot something. Pain teaches. Silence sharpens. And tomorrow I would decide what staying really meant. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The morning after I spoke up, the house felt different. Not peaceful. Careful. People moved like the floors might squeak too loudly. Doors reminded themselves to close softly. Even the air felt like it was holding its breath. That's how you know something has shifted. I woke early again. Pain greeted me like an old neighbor, familiar, annoying, but not in charge. I sat up slowly and waited for my body to settle. When it did, I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the world didn't know what had happened inside this house. Birds hopped. Cars passed. Life went on. Inside, nothing was the same. At breakfast, no one spoke to me. Not because they were angry, because they didn't know how. My youngest grandchild set a plate in front of me without meeting my eyes. He spilled a little juice and wiped it quickly, like a mistake mattered more now. It did. My daughter sat across from me, phone face down. That alone told me something. She was listening. Not to me yet, but to the change. I ate slowly. Not to make a point, because rushing had never helped me. Halfway through the meal, my oldest grandchild cleared his throat. "Grandma," he said. I looked up. "Yes." He swallowed. "About the video." My daughter shot him a look. He stopped. "I don't want apologies forced," I said calmly. They all froze. "I want understanding," I continued, "and that takes time." No one argued. That told me more than words ever could. After breakfast, my daughter followed me to the living room. "Mom," she said quietly, "we need to talk more." I sat down. "We will," I replied, "just not all at once." She nodded, unsure. I added, "This isn't about punishment." She looked relieved. "It's about boundaries," I finished. Her shoulders stiffened again. That afternoon, Evelyn came by. Unannounced. On purpose. My daughter answered the door and hesitated. "Oh, hi," she said. Evelyn smiled warmly. "I'm just checking on Althea." She didn't ask permission. She didn't need to. We sat together near the window. Sunlight warmed my hands. Evelyn leaned in. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Seen," I replied. She smiled. "That's step one." My daughter hovered nearby. Listening again. Evelyn spoke gently but clearly. "When elders are ignored, they don't fade," she said. "They fracture families." My daughter shifted uncomfortably. I didn't interrupt. Later, when Evelyn left, my daughter surprised me. She brought tea. Set it down carefully. Sat across from me. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. I believed her. And I didn't. Both can be true. "Hurt isn't always loud," I replied. She nodded slowly. "I was overwhelmed," she said. "I know," I answered. "But being overwhelmed doesn't give anyone permission to erase me." She looked down. That evening, something small happened. But small things matter. My youngest grandchild asked me to help with homework. Not because he needed help. Because he wanted to sit near me. We worked quietly. When he got the answer right, he smiled. At me. Not his phone. That night, I wrote in my notebook. They're learning how to look at me again. But learning takes time. And time reveals truth. Because respect that appears overnight isn't real. It's fear wearing good manners. Before bed, my daughter knocked on my door. She waited this time. Can I come in? She asked. Yes, I said. She sat on the edge of the bed. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. I took her hand. You already almost did, I said gently. She nodded, tears forming. I lay down that night tired but steady. Because speaking up didn't fix everything. It simply made lying harder. And the next few days would prove whether this change had roots. Or was just a pause. As I closed my eyes, I heard quiet voices in the hallway. Not laughter. Questions. Worry. Adjustment. I whispered into the dark. They laughed at my pain. But now, they're listening. And tomorrow would test whether listening would turn into respect. Or resistance. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Listening did not last long. Respect never settles in right away. It circles first. It tests. That's what happened next. The second morning after our talk, things slipped. Not big things. Small ones. The kind people hope you won't notice. My pills were moved. Not gone. Just placed somewhere else. On a higher shelf. I thought it was safer, my daughter said quickly when I asked. Safer for who? I said nothing. I reached for a chair and moved them back. She watched. Learning again. Later that day, my oldest grandchild muttered under his breath. She's acting like she runs the place. He didn't know I heard. Or maybe he did. Either way, the words stayed with me. I used to soften moments like that. Laugh it off. Explain myself smaller. This time, I wrote it down. They're testing the old Emmy. That afternoon, my daughter canceled my hair appointment. I figured you wouldn't want to go, she said. I looked at her. I always want to go. She paused. Oh. I rescheduled it myself. She noticed. Her jaw tightened. Control doesn't disappear. It reshapes. That evening, tension returned. Not loud. Heavy. My grandchildren stayed in their rooms. Phones buzzing. Doors closed. I heard whispers again. But they sounded different now. Worried. At dinner, my daughter tried a new tone. Too sweet. I made your favorite, she said. I smiled politely. Thank you. She waited. For praise. For forgiveness. For something. I ate quietly. After dinner, she followed me to my room again. I feel like you don't trust me, she said. I sat down slowly. I trust what I see, I replied. Her eyes filled. I'm trying. I know, I said. But trying doesn't undo what happened. She sighed. So what do you want? That question mattered. I thought carefully. I want to be included, I said. In what? She asked. In my own life. Silence. Later that night, I heard footsteps in the office again. Soft. Careful. Someone trying not to be seen. I stayed in bed. I didn't move. Because sometimes the best move is letting people reveal themselves. The next morning, I found the office door locked. That hadn't happened before. I smiled sadly. Fear had arrived. At breakfast, my daughter avoided my eyes again. My oldest grandchild scrolled through his phone aggressively. The youngest didn't touch his food. Guilt has weight. I stood up carefully. I'm going out today, I said. Everyone looked up. Oh, my daughter asked. Yes, I replied, with a friend. She hesitated. Do you need help? No, I said calmly. I'll manage. When I returned that afternoon, something was wrong. The air felt tight. My room door was slightly open. Not how I left it. I stepped inside. My notebook was gone. My heart dropped. That notebook held everything. Dates. Notes. Truth. I stood very still. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I went back to the living room. My daughter sat stiffly on the couch. I placed my hand on the armrest. Where is my notebook? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. My oldest grandchild stood up. I threw it away, he said. My breath caught. Why? I asked. He shrugged. You were writing lies. The room spun for a moment. But I stayed standing. That notebook was mine, I said. So is this house, he snapped. My daughter gasped. I looked at her. She didn't correct him. That hurt more than his words. I nodded slowly. All right, I said. I turned and walked back to my room. Behind me, silence followed. Not relief. Fear. Inside, I sat on the bed. Hands shaking now. Not weak. Angry. Grief and clarity mixing together. They had crossed a line. Not with paperwork. Not with whispers. But with destruction. I reached into my drawer. Pulled out a small envelope. Inside were copies. Photos. Backups. I smiled. They thought they erased the truth. They didn't know I planned for this. I whispered to myself. They laughed at my pain. They tested my patience. They destroyed my words. I closed my fist around the envelope. And tomorrow, they will learn what happens when you try to silence the woman who remembers everything. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I did not confront anyone that night. That surprised even me. The old me would have cried. Argued. Asked why. But something had changed. When they threw away my notebook, they didn't just cross a line. They told me exactly who they were willing to be. I sat on the bed and held the envelope close. Inside were copies of everything they thought they destroyed. Dates. Photos. Notes written in my careful handwriting. Truth survives when you treat it like something precious. I lay down fully dressed. The house was quiet. Not peaceful. Heavy. No laughter. No games. No careless noise. Even the walls felt tense. In the dark, I whispered to myself. They think silence means surrender. They're wrong. The next morning, I woke before everyone else. My hip ached. My heart felt steady. I moved slowly into the kitchen and made tea. The sound of the kettle seemed louder than usual, like it was announcing something. My youngest grandchild came in first. He froze when he saw me. Morning, Grandma, he said quietly. Morning, baby, I replied. He hesitated. Then he said, I didn't laugh. I looked at him. I know, I said. His shoulders dropped with relief. My daughter entered next. Her eyes were tired. Red. She didn't speak right away. She poured coffee and stared into the cup. Mom, she finally said, we need to talk about yesterday. I nodded. Yes, I said, we do. But not now. I carried my tea to the living room and sat by the window. Sunlight touched my hands. I focused on that warmth. Because warmth reminds you that you're still here. Later, my oldest grandchild stormed out of his room. He avoided me, slamming cabinets, dragging his feet. Anger always arrives before guilt. At lunch, I spoke calmly. "I'll be spending some time with friends this week," I said. My daughter looked up sharply. "Oh." "Yes," I replied. "I need space." Her mouth opened, then closed. She nodded. That afternoon, Evelyn called. I told her what happened. She went quiet for a long time. "They destroyed your records," she said. "They tried to," I corrected. "Yes," she said slowly. "They did." She asked me a question. "What do you want now?" I thought carefully. "I want them to understand," I said. "Understand what?" she asked. "That I am not something they can erase." She sighed. "That may take time." "I have time," I said. "But they don't." That evening, the tension cracked. My oldest grandchild confronted my daughter loudly. "You said Grandma wouldn't notice." My heart tightened. So he knew. My daughter snapped back. "I told you not to touch her things." Silence followed. They realized. I had heard. I didn't move. I didn't interrupt. Letting people hear themselves is powerful. Later, my daughter came to my door. She knocked. Waited. "Mom," she said softly. "Yes," I replied. Her voice trembled. I didn't know he would do that. I opened the door slowly. "But you knew he might," I said. She nodded, tears forming. "I messed up," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "But messing up doesn't end here." She looked scared. She should have been. I sat back down and took out the envelope. I didn't show it to her. I let her see that I wasn't empty-handed. "I prepared," I said. "For what?" she asked. "For being ignored," I replied. Her face changed. She realized something important. I was no longer reacting. I was choosing. That night, my grandchildren stayed quiet. No laughter. No phones. Just tension. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. They thought destroying my notebook would end my voice. But voices don't live on paper. They live in memory. I whispered into the dark. They thought silence meant winning. But tomorrow they will hear me without me raising my voice. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. That night, the house didn't sleep. You can feel it when a place stays awake. The walls creaked. Footsteps paused. Doors opened and closed too softly. People were thinking. Thinking hurts when you've been wrong. I stayed in my room. Not hiding. Waiting. Waiting is different when you're not afraid. Around midnight, I heard a whisper. "Grandma." It was the youngest. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Yes, baby." The door opened slowly. He stood there, small in the doorway, hands twisting together. "I didn't mean for them to throw your book away," he said. I patted the bed. "Come sit." He did. "They said you wouldn't remember," he whispered. I closed my eyes. "So you believed them?" I asked. He nodded, tears spilling. "I'm sorry," he said. I pulled him close. "I know," I said softly. Sometimes sorry is the first real word a child learns. The next morning, the truth came out without me asking. At breakfast, my oldest grandchild slammed his fork down. "This is all getting blown out of proportion," he said. My daughter stiffened. "You filmed her," she snapped. "You destroyed her things." He shrugged. "She's old, she forgets." The word hung in the air. Old. I stood slowly. Every eye turned to me. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. "I forget where I put my keys," I said calmly. "But I don't forget who laughs when I'm hurt." The room froze. My oldest grandchild looked away. Guilt had finally arrived. Too late to hide. I reached into my bag, pulled out one photo. Just one. It showed me holding him as a baby. He stared at it. "I carried you once," I said. "I won't carry your cruelty." My daughter covered her mouth. My youngest stared at the table. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Necessary. After breakfast, my daughter asked me to sit with her. "I need to fix this," she said. I nodded. "You can't fix it for me," I replied. "You can only fix what you allow." Her eyes filled. "I didn't stop them," she whispered. "No," I said, "you didn't." That afternoon, the oldest grandchild avoided me. Not out of anger. Out of shame. That's when change begins. Later, I packed a small bag. Just clothes. My notebook copies. My envelope. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. My daughter watched from the doorway. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I'm stepping away," I said. "For how long?" "As long as it takes." Fear flashed across her face. "You're leaving," she whispered. "I'm choosing myself," I answered. She nodded slowly, understanding at last. That night, I slept somewhere else. A friend's spare room. Quiet. Safe. Respectful. As I lay there, I realized something. They laughed at my pain because they thought I couldn't leave. They were wrong. I whispered into the dark. They thought silence meant winning. They forgot something. I smiled. I still know how to walk away. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The first night away felt strange. Not scary. Empty. I lay in Evelyn's guest room staring at the ceiling, listening to a clock tick softly on the wall. No footsteps outside my door. No whispers. No tension sitting in the air like smoke. Just quiet. Real quiet. I miss my chair by the window. I miss my plant. But I did not miss being watched. I did not miss shrinking. In the morning, I made my bed slowly. Folded the blanket neatly. Placed my shoes side by side. I wasn't rushing back to anything. That mattered. Evelyn brewed coffee and slid a cup toward me. "You sleep?" she asked. "Yes," I said, for the first time in a while. She smiled gently. "That tells you something." It did. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls. 5 messages. All from my daughter. I didn't open them. Not yet. Absence only works when you let it. We spent the morning talking about small things. Gardens. Weather. People we used to know. Nothing about the house. Nothing about my grandchildren. I needed space from the weight of it all. Around noon, Evelyn asked, "Do you want lunch?" "Yes," I said. And we ate without interruption. That alone felt like healing. Meanwhile, back at the house, I didn't know it yet, but things were unraveling. The silence I left behind was loud. Later that afternoon, I finally read the messages. "Mom, where are you? Please call me. The kids are asking about you." I set the phone down. Letting them ask was part of the lesson. That evening, my youngest grandchild sent me a message. "Grandma, I'm sorry. The house feels weird without you." I closed my eyes. Not from pain. From truth. I typed back slowly. "I love you, I just need time." Nothing more. Nothing less. That night, I dreamed of the fall again. But this time, when I reached out, someone took my hand. The next morning, I felt lighter. Still sore. Still tired. But lighter. Like something heavy had been set down. Evelyn drove me to the park. We sat on a bench in the sun. People passed. Children laughed. A grandmother pushed a stroller. I watched her closely. She looked tired, loved, seen. I forgot what it feels like to be outside my role, I said. Evelyn nodded. You were more than a role before they made you one. Back at her house, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my daughter calling. I answered. Mom, she said quickly, are you okay? Yes, I replied. Relief rushed through the phone. Can we talk? She asked. We are, I said calmly. She paused. I mean, in person. I thought for a moment. Not yet, I said. She exhaled shakily. I understand. That was new. That evening, Evelyn said something important. They don't know how much you held together until you stopped holding. She was right. As night fell, I sat by the window. Moonlight touched the floor. I realized something deep. They laughed at my pain because they never thought they'd lose my presence. Now they were learning. I whispered to myself. I didn't leave to punish them. I left to remind myself who I am. And tomorrow would test whether they were learning or just missing their comfort. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't hear it myself, but I felt it. You know when something shifts far away, and your body knows before your mind does. That's how it was. The second day I was gone, my daughter called again. Her voice sounded different. Tired. Not angry. Not defensive. Just tired. Mom, she said softly, the house doesn't feel right. I said nothing. Silence makes people listen to themselves. The kids are quiet, she continued. Too quiet. I could picture it. No laughter. No jokes. Just the sound of space where I used to be. Later that afternoon, my oldest grandchild sent a message. When are you coming back? No joke. No sarcasm. Just a question. I didn't answer. Not because I was cruel. Because answers too early stop lessons from forming. That evening, Evelyn noticed me staring out the window. You okay? She asked. Yes, I said, just letting things settle. She nodded. Sometimes settling feels like breaking. That night, my daughter called again. I answered this time. I don't know how you did it, she said. Did what? I asked gently. Kept everything together, she replied. I didn't realize how much you carried. My throat tightened. But I kept my voice steady. You weren't supposed to notice, I said. You were supposed to respect it. She cried then. Quiet crying. The kind that doesn't ask for comfort. I let them laugh, she whispered. Yes, I said. And I didn't stop it. No, I agreed. Silence again. The next morning, my youngest grandchild sent a voice note. His voice was small. Grandma, the house feels empty, even when we're all here. I pressed the phone to my chest. That was the sound of understanding beginning. Evelyn drove me past my old house that afternoon. Not inside. Just past. I looked at it from the car window. It looked smaller. Not because it changed. Because I had. That evening, my daughter texted. We need you. I stared at the words. Then I typed back slowly. You don't need me. You miss me. There is a difference. Minutes passed. Then dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, a message came. You're right. I closed my eyes. That was the first honest sentence she'd sent in years. The oldest grandchild sent another message later. I didn't think it mattered. I was wrong. No apology yet. But cracks were forming. That night, I dreamed again. This time, I wasn't on the floor. I was standing. And the laughter faded as I walked away. The next morning, I woke with a choice in my chest. Stay away longer, or return on my own terms. I packed my bag slowly. Not to leave Evelyn's house yet. Just to feel ready. Readiness is power. I sat on the edge of the bed and whispered. They laughed at my pain. They learned from my absence. But what happens next? That depends on whether they learned respect or just fear of losing me. I looked at my phone. A final message waited. From my daughter. Please come home, not as before, as you. I stared at it for a long time. Because the next step I took would decide whether laughter stayed buried or came back in a different form. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't rush home. That part mattered most. I packed my bag slowly, folded each piece of clothing with care, placed my notebook and envelope right on top. Not hidden, not afraid. Ready. Evelyn watched me from the doorway. You sure? She asked. Yes, I replied, but not the way they expect. She nodded. That's the strongest way. The drive back felt quiet. Not tense. Just still. I looked out the window and noticed things I used to miss. A man watering his plants. A woman laughing on the phone. A child waving at passing cars. Life didn't pause because my house fell apart. It waited. When we pulled up, the house looked the same. Same paint. Same steps. Same door. But I knew better. Homes remember. I stepped inside. No one spoke at first. My daughter stood near the kitchen. My grandchildren hovered in the hallway. No phones out. No laughter. Just eyes watching. Waiting. I'm back, I said calmly. That was all. My daughter swallowed. Mom, thank you for coming. I nodded. I didn't come back because you asked, I replied. She flinched. I came back because I chose to. I set my bag down in the living room. Not in my old corner. In the center. That was new. We sat. All of us. No TV on. No distractions. Just faces. I want to say something, I began. My voice didn't shake. I'm not here to punish anyone. Relief passed through the room. I'm here to change how we live together. That relief vanished. My oldest grandchild shifted. What does that mean? He asked. It means, I said gently, things don't go back. My daughter opened her mouth. Closed it. Finally said, okay. That word cost her something. I respected that. I will not be filmed, I continued. I will not be spoken over. I will not be laughed at. No one argued. I will manage my own things, I added. Papers, phone, choices. I looked at my daughter. You can help if I ask. She nodded slowly. I understand. The youngest spoke quietly. I'm sorry, Grandma. I reached out and took his hand. I know, I said. He squeezed back. The oldest didn't speak. Not yet. Some lessons take longer. That afternoon, I moved my chair back to the window. But I placed something new beside it. A small table. With my notebook on top. Visible. Untouchable. My daughter watched silently. Then she surprised me. She brought a lockbox. Would you like this, she asked, for your papers? I considered it. Yes, I said. Because offering is different than taking. That evening, we cooked together. Not because we had to. Because we chose to. No jokes. No tension. Just careful movement. Respect learning how to breathe again. Later, my oldest grandchild came to my door. He knocked. Waited. Come in, I said. He stood there awkwardly. I was wrong, he said. Not loud. Not dramatic. Real. I didn't think it mattered, he continued. I didn't think you'd leave. I nodded. That's why I had to. He looked down. I won't do it again. I met his eyes. Make sure you don't, I said. He nodded. That night, I slept in my own bed again. Different bed. Same mattress. Different woman. As I closed my eyes, I whispered. They laughed at my pain. They felt my absence. And now, they will learn what respect looks like. But respect isn't proven in one night. It's tested. And tomorrow would bring the test. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Respect does not arrive fully formed. It stumbles. It forgets itself. And then it shows who is really trying. The first test came sooner than I expected. The very next morning, I woke up to quiet sounds in the kitchen. Too early. Whispers again. I stayed in bed and listened. Not to spy. To understand. I thought she said we could help, my daughter whispered. We can, another voice replied. Just don't tell her. My chest tightened. So quickly. So easily. I waited until the kettle clicked off. Then I walked in. Slow. Steady. They jumped like children caught with a hand in the jar. Good morning, I said. My daughter froze. Morning, Mom, she replied too fast. I smiled softly. What were we not telling me? I asked. Silence. My daughter swallowed. We were just talking about your appointments, she said. I don't remember asking, I replied calmly. Her face flushed. I was trying to help. I know, I said, but helping starts with listening. The youngest looked between us. Scared. I softened my voice. This isn't about blame, I said. It's about habit. They nodded. Not fully convinced. Later that day, I noticed my notebook had been moved. Not opened. Just shifted. That mattered. I picked it up and carried it with me to the living room. I placed it beside me. Then I said nothing. Sometimes silence teaches faster than words. That afternoon, my oldest grandchild failed his test. He laughed at something on his phone. Loud. Careless. Then he stopped. Looked at me. And added, sorry. That wasn't respect. That was fear. Fear fades. Understanding lasts. At dinner, my daughter tried again. Soft voice. Too soft. Maybe we should all talk about future plans, she said. I nodded. Yes, I replied, we should. Her eyes lit up. But I continued. Later. The light dimmed. After dinner, I went to my room. I locked the door. Not to shut them out. To show choice. I sat on the bed and opened my notebook. I wrote, respect is not comfort. It is consistency. A knock came at my door. Soft. My daughter. I'm trying, she said. I see that, I replied. But trying doesn't mean steering. She nodded slowly. That night, I slept lightly. Listening. Waiting. Feeling. Around midnight, I heard movement. The office door creaked. My heart tightened. But I stayed still. In the morning, the lockbox was untouched. Good. But the office light was off when it should have been on. Something had been checked. Not taken. Yet. At breakfast, no one spoke. Not awkward. Careful. I stood. I need to say something, I said. They looked up. I am not here to be watched, I continued. I am here to live. No one argued. That afternoon, I made a choice. I took my bag. My notebook. My envelope. And I went out alone. Not to escape. To prove. When I returned hours later, the house was silent. Too silent. My room was untouched. Good. But the office door was open. I walked inside. The drawer was closed. Locked. But the picture frame was crooked. My spare key had been touched. Not used. Touched. I straightened the frame. Slowly. Deliberately. And I whispered, "They are still thinking." I went back to my room. Closed the door. Sat down. Heart steady. Because thinking becomes acting. And the next move someone made would tell me whether respect had taken root, or whether this house would need one final lesson. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't sleep well that night. Not because I was afraid. Because I was listening. The house had a sound now. A careful sound. Like people walking around glass. Morning came without sunlight. Clouds sat heavy outside the windows. I dressed slowly. My hip still hurt, but I didn't rush it. Pain does not mean stop. It means move wisely. At breakfast, no one spoke. Not even the youngest. My daughter stared into her cup. My oldest grandchild tapped his phone, then put it face down when he noticed me watching. That small movement told me everything. After breakfast, I went to the living room. I sat in my chair by the window. My notebook beside me. Visible. Clear. A few minutes later, my daughter came in. She sat across from me. Too carefully. "Mom," she said softly, "I was thinking." I raised my hand gently. "Let me finish my tea first," I said. She nodded. Respect trying to learn. When I finished, I asked, "What were you thinking?" She took a breath. "We should probably make a plan," she said, "just in case." Just in case. I waited. "In case of what?" I asked. "In case something happens," she replied. "Something always happens. That's life." I nodded. "Plans are fine," I said, "as long as they include me." She hesitated. "They do," she said quickly. Too quickly. I stood slowly. "I need something from the office," I said. She froze. "Oh, I can get it," she offered. "No," I replied. "I'll get it myself." The room went silent. My oldest grandchild looked up sharply. My youngest stared at the floor. Fear again. I walked down the hallway. Each step steady. Each breath slow. When I reached the office, I stopped. The door was locked. That hadn't been the case yesterday. I didn't knock. I didn't shout. I took out my phone. I took a picture. Time-stamped. Clear. Then I turned around and went back to the living room. "I need the key," I said calmly. My daughter blinked. "What key?" "The office key," I replied. She swallowed. "I don't know where it is." I nodded. "That's a problem," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The oldest grandchild stood up. "Why does it matter?" he snapped. "It's just papers." "Just papers." I looked at him. "They were just laughs too," I said softly. The words landed hard. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Sat back down. I reached into my bag. I pulled out my envelope. Not everything. Just one page. A copy. I placed it on the table. "This is mine," I said. Silence. My daughter's eyes widened. "You made copies?" "Yes," I replied. "Long ago." She looked shaken. "Good." "I'm not asking," I continued. "I'm informing." They leaned in. Fear turning into attention. "The locked door tells me someone is still deciding for me," I said. That stops today. My daughter whispered, Mom. I held up my hand. Let me finish. I am not helpless, I said. I am not confused. And I will not be handled. The room felt tight, like it might snap. That afternoon, I left the house alone. Again. No announcement. No explanation. Just choice. When I returned hours later, something was wrong. The air felt heavy. Too still. I walked toward my room. And that's when I saw it. My bag. On the floor. Open. My envelope gone. I stood very still. Heart pounding now. Not from fear. From certainty. Someone had crossed the line. Again. But this time, they didn't just test me. They challenged me. I closed my eyes and whispered. They think I won't act. They think silence means fear. I opened my eyes. And for the first time since all this began, I knew exactly what to do next. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't scream. That surprised them later. I didn't cry either. I just stood there, looking at the open bag on the floor. Empty. For a long moment, I did nothing. That was on purpose. When people think they've won, they reveal themselves. I closed my bag. Slow. Careful. Then I walked to the kitchen. They were all there. Sitting. Waiting. Not talking. I want everyone here, I said calmly. No one moved. They didn't need to. They were already caught. My daughter spoke first. Mom, something must have happened. I nodded. Yes, I replied. Something did. I sat down. Not in my old chair. At the head of the table. That was new. My envelope is gone, I said plainly. Silence. The kind that answers questions without words. The youngest looked confused. The oldest looked angry. My daughter looked afraid. Different faces. Same truth. I won't ask who took it, I continued. They looked up sharply. I already know. The oldest shifted. My daughter clenched her hands. What I want to know, I said gently, is why you thought I wouldn't notice. No one spoke. I left copies in 3 places, I added. That envelope wasn't protection. It was a test. Their faces changed. Fear finally turned into understanding. The oldest stood. I was trying to help, he said. Help who? I asked. He opened his mouth. Closed it. My daughter whispered, give it back. He hesitated. Then stormed out of the room. The door slammed. I didn't flinch. That mattered. Minutes passed. Then footsteps. He returned. The envelope in his hand. Crushed. Angry. Ashamed. He placed it on the table. Hard. There, he snapped. I picked it up. Straightened it. Smoothed the edges. Thank you, I said. Not sarcastic. Final. I'm leaving tomorrow, I continued. That hit them harder than any yell could have. My daughter gasped. What, why? Because respect learned under pressure fades, I said. I need space to see who you become without me correcting you. The youngest started to cry. I reached for him. This isn't punishment, I said softly. It's truth. My daughter whispered, where will you go? I smiled gently. I already arranged it. That shook her. Good. I will visit, I said. I will call. But I will not live where my dignity has to be defended. The oldest dropped into a chair. His anger drained. You didn't tell us you could do this, he muttered. I met his eyes. You didn't ask. That night, I packed again. Not in a rush. Not afraid. Certain. As I zipped my bag, I whispered. They laughed at my pain. They tested my silence. But now, they will live with the sound of their own choices. And tomorrow would not be about revenge. It would be about freedom. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I left early in the morning, before the house woke up. Not because I was running, because I didn't need goodbye speeches. My choice had already been made. I stood at the door one last time, looked around. The walls were the same. The floor creaked the same. But the air felt lighter, like the house knew something had ended. I left a note on the table. Not long, just clear. I love you all. I am not leaving because I am weak. I am leaving because I am strong enough to choose peace. When you are ready to respect me, you will find me. I signed my name. Big, clear, unshaking. The car ride felt strange. Quiet, but not lonely. I watched the road stretch forward and felt something new in my chest. Relief. The place I moved into wasn't fancy. Small apartment. Sunlight through the windows. A little balcony with space for plants. Enough room for me. That was all I needed. The first week was hard. Not because I missed them. Because I missed who I thought they were. But each day, I woke up without fear. Without whispers. Without laughter behind my back. I cooked when I wanted. Slept when I wanted. Sat in silence when I wanted. That silence healed me. The calls started after 3 days. My daughter first. Then the grandchildren. Some cried. Some apologized. Some stayed quiet. I listened. Listening doesn't mean surrender. One afternoon, my oldest grandchild came to see me. He stood at the door with his head down. I didn't know, he said. You knew enough, I replied gently. He nodded. I won't forget. I believed him. Because his eyes had changed. Weeks passed. Then months. They stopped laughing. They stopped assuming. They started asking. One Sunday, they came together. No anger. No excuses. Just humility. My daughter held my hands and said, I failed you. I squeezed back. Yes, I said. But you don't have to fail again. We didn't move back together. That mattered. Love doesn't need control to survive. Now, when I walk into a room, they stand. Not out of fear. Out of respect. I sit on my balcony most mornings. Sun on my face. Coffee warm in my hands. And I think about that day they laughed. At my pain. At my fall. At my silence. They aren't laughing now. They are listening. Learning. Remembering. And I smile to myself and whisper. I didn't raise my voice. I raised myself.